discussion topic, which this week was something that I had a thought about. Given the fact that we have had a lot of games come out recently that are relying on previous titles. These are games like Isle of Cats Duo, Tokaido Duo, Splendor Duel, all of these kind of things. But what I got me thinking about, rather than thinking about duo games, it got me thinking about the idea of that it has felt recently that a lot of Kickstarters and a lot of games such are coming out now and seem to be falling into the trap of what I call the a movie cycle trap, which is sequelitis and relying on other known IPs, where the golden age of cinema seems to be behind us now, and we are well and truly in the comic book franchise, you know, time of these days. But does that mean are we? Do you feel like we are hitting that here in the board gaming world? I start to see games companies such as Asmodee, Simon, these big companies which are now becoming much more profit focused, and I'm feeling like they're starting to run into that trap. I want to open the floor to you gentlemen here. Have you felt the same thing? Do you disagree with me on this particular instance? But I would like to open the floor to you and to ask the people here now, people who are listening as well, to leave us a comment on do you agree or disagree, and have an example of either way. But I'm going to open the floor to any of you guys, and I'll come back and chime in later as we go with this. But I want to open the floor
I,
to you.
I just want to say, probably up until 3 years ago, I thought there was only one June board game. Now there's like 10 of June board games. Like, what did they release? Like
You
one
and me
movie,
both.
and they were like, let's make 10 board games. Like,
Yeah.
I found out the hard way. I bought the game, took it home, opened it up thinking I knew how to play it, and it was not the correct game.
you
So
you open the original June, not the
Not June
remastered
Imperium.
version.
And it's funny because really only the original June has really any right to be to call it to actually say we are close to the theme, because you know June is about competing houses and stuff like that, and it's a the original June is a negotiation game more than
Oh,
anything
I
else.
thought it was
I
a war game on the planet.
It is. It's like it's very it's very TI. It is really
Yeah,
really close to
very
TI, but a
TI.
lot of it, but a lot of it is. I'd argue it's more negotiation than TI. And but the point I'm making is that unlike let's say June Imperium, fantastic game, love it. You could have put any theme on there, and it would have been an equally good game.
yeah.
So yeah, and look, I'm probably gonna cop some flack from that one from that comment, but
From the hardcore June fans.
yeah, I stand by it. I think it could have been any theme, and June Imperium would have been fine. So anyway,
To yeah. To answer your question though, Neil, I'm not too sure how I feel about whether it's sort of being overused or not, or whether they're falling into the trap. Like, you have a look at games like you've played a lot of Splendor, and then you go and play Splendor Duel. Obviously, like, they could have made that game and called it something else and used a different theme and name and that sort of stuff. But I felt like that would have actually made it harder for me as the player, because I would have had to. It would have felt like I was learning everything from scratch. Whereas the fact that I had played Splendor already actually sort of enhanced the experience for me and made it easy to jump into. There's less to learn, and it probably would have felt like a heavier game without it. And I feel like that sort of continues on with a lot of these games.
See, what made me think about this was not necessarily Splendid Duel, because I think Splendid Duel is a very good example of taking a game which is, and making it a very cutthroat two-player game. However, in saying that, the reason that this kind of came up was we have a discussion group that talks about board games, sometimes way too much than we probably should be when we should be working.
There's never too much.
But one of the things that got brought up was that a lot of these games that seem to be getting, at least, especially in the duo treatment, Tokaido Duo, Splendor, Isle of Cats, etc.
Seven Wonders.
Seven Wonders, right? A lot of these games are actually good at two players. Splendor, for example, is actually really good at two players because it is a race between you and the other player. Isle of Cats Duo, which has just been announced, got one. There are these games that I don't know specific. Now, and look, I want to be very clear. I have said on this podcast, I like a lot of the duo versions better than I like the previous versions, but part of the attraction of the board gaming hobby for me has been finding games and themes and IPs that have nothing to do with anything and going, this is what is this? I want more of it. A big example of this for me is the Undaunted series. Yes, it uses a World War II theme, which is well and truly used, but it is a brand new game with under a system with a new name that means nothing to another previous game. Now, it itself now also has Undaunted Battle of Britain, Undaunted
Well,
the new thing.
they got the rebrand sci-fi one as well.
Absolutely. And
But
this is
now
where,
it's Undaunted is more a mechanic thing.
yes, right. And so, but this is what I mean, which is that my mind is kind of conflicted sometimes because when I hear Undaunted, I know what mechanic or sort of game that I'm going into. And I
Yeah.
agree with you, Joel, that that's actually a very good point. Not something I really thought, but and this kind of begs the question then is like we start to associate game mechanics with titles. Undaunted is a turn by is two player back and forth as a specific thing. Splendor
Well,
has a specific thing.
Pandemic is also its own little mechanic name
Yeah.
brand now too.
I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, and so I don't know. I just want to make sure, like, and I say this, and I'm bringing up this topic fully aware of the fact that we have now got more board games ever coming out than we've ever had before. Kickstarter, GameFound, all of these things are coming out, so I'm fully aware of that. But I do wonder if we are bypassing the hidden gem for the well-known commodity.
I
I don't know.
I think I'm kind of gonna like maybe it's devil's advocate. I'm not sure, but it's like I can see one aspect of it, and it's more so where board gaming becomes more of a collector's thing than a gaming thing. I feel like, and and that is very much the case in a number of large Kickstarter titles, like your Zombie Sides of the World, like your the
Just your
Marvel
Steam in general.
series. Yeah, like the name of the game is lost on me, but I know it's got like a whole lot of like little chibi minis and stuff, and people are collecting the entire
Are you talking about
sets.
Unmatched?
No.
Okay.
It's a Marvel series by Simon.
Right.
And it's a super lightweight battler. It's like a family friendly Marvel
Marvel
based.
United, I think. Is it that?
Maybe, yeah. And so you have that where I look and I haven't played it, so I'm gonna put my hands in the air and say, and I apologize if I say this wrong. But the impression I'm getting is that it's not necessarily the exact same game, but it's a similar game every time. You just get more and more and more content. But I tend to wonder how much of that content actually seems fresh and interesting. And so I would then argue they're more so appealing to the fans of the series to then collect more stuff. So I agree with you in that regard, me. And I would put Zombicide in this collection in sort of this group as well. Even to some degree, sort of Cthulhu, Death May Die. Like they're they're still fulfilling the current season 3 and the new standalone box, and they're already announcing season 4. Now, yes, there are new scenarios, so on and so forth, but I would I don't know, but and maybe it's not as bad as, let's say, the Zombicides or not as much into that realm, but I think there is a little bit of that there as well. Now, what I would say, and this touches on your point, Joel, is I think this has kind of been happening for a long time anyway. There was a period where board games were all about subsistence farming. I'm looking at my shelf now. I can see 5 games that are all about subsistence farming. It was just like the go-to theme, or it would be.
I'll be honest, I don't even know what that means.
Like
So basically,
farmland,
like
the UA Rosenbergs
farming.
of the world, Lowlands,
Yeah.
Caverna, Puerto Rico, that kind of stuff.
Just farming in general. So quite literally, it's all about, I'm going to go and I'm going to get some goods and I'm going to get some wheat. I'm going to use that wheat to go buy sheep. And then those sheep are going to breed more sheep. And then I'm going to turn those sheep into something. And then I'm going to get points.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
That that's why I kind of think like the theme. So it's like if we're talking about themes in general, and just those themes are just kind of like repeating and then resulting in people just purchasing um, those type of games anyway. I've got a feeling that was kind of happening regardless
But I think
in the
it's
hobby.
because a lot of board games come out of Germany.
Possibly, possibly, and there was a period there they were being designed by a small subset of
Yeah.
designers, successful designers, I will say, and that was
Mhm.
their shtick. Um, but I will say I don't. I think there may be a little bit of laziness in the hobby with just
100%.
picking a
I'm
theme and then going, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's rife yet, excusing all the monopolies that exist out there because, you know,
We don't talk
sure,
about that. Yeah.
we don't talk about that. But I don't, I see it, but I don't think it's rife at this point in time.
I
Look,
But
I don't
but I am concerned that it may be.
I don't understand, right? So behind me, I've got a game called Mage Knight, and this game is fantastic. It's up there as one of the best solo experiences, big, heavy, complex games you can get. And you can still buy it today. It was released a while back, but you can still buy it. It's still in print, and that there's a rethemed remaster version that just has Star Trek all over it, and the mechanics are pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same game. Battlestar Galactica received the same treatment. You can't get that game anymore, new, but now it's a Cthulhu rethemed called Unfathomable.
unfathomable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why did like I understand you can't get BSG, but why did the Mage Knight
Well,
remake need to
I
be
know
Star Trek?
and the BSG one was a publisher issue. I
It
do know
was,
that.
but like,
Yeah.
why do you need to
Yeah.
retheme a game to become like space and sci-fi when you can get the RPG, tropey one, um, and it's still today?
And I think this is
Yeah.
where my question kind of started, which was that it's very obvious why this is happening, and it's money chasing, and
Yeah.
rightly so. Like board gaming is a business. I don't deny that this is a business and that people are trying to make a living, so they will follow the themes, the trends, that kind of stuff. That doesn't make sense, but I'm worrying, and I haven't seen it yet. But I'm wondering if by following and chasing especially the big companies chasing the trends of the market rather than trying to innovate on something, whether or not we will see less games like Arcs, less games like these big scythes, for example, these things that hit the market and completely pivot where we're going. The Gloom Havens, which hit the
Mm.
market and just go, you know what, I'm going to focus and make this the best game and pivot it that way. And all of a sudden, Gloomhaven comes out, and the amount of dungeon crawlers that comes out just goes like it skyrockets, right? That kind of thing. The idea of Scythe comes out, and the theme of like, okay, these kind of Euro, board presence games increase. And I'm just hoping. I don't want to linger on this too because I don't want to think it's
Well,
all
look,
doom and gloom.
Scythe to me is a game that sort of initially mixed a few genres, and now you're seeing more and more games be innovative,
Yeah.
mixing different genres, and then you get a game like Dune Imperium 5 years later or so, and that's I think that took some influences from Scythe.
Yeah,
It's
well,
hard to because
Yeah.
if you consider that the person making their product thinks that they have a great product, it's going to make people happy. They're going to make some really good memories around it. They're really going to enjoy the time, right? And then you realize that if we throw a Marvel sticker on that exact product, now 100,000 times more people are going to see it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'll make money as well, but is that necessarily a bad thing? That now more people are going to play a game where they have great memories and they enjoy the time, and where
Well,
if you had your generic theme before that you came up with yourself that wouldn't have sold as many copies, are you what's the right decision?
Yeah. Look, I 100% agree with you. Like I think this is actually a good thing for the hobby because, again, excusing the whole monopoly thing, which is not a good thing for the hobby. I will argue that point. It's nothing against Monopoly, but no one needs 20 different copies of Monopoly released in a year. No one needs to buy them all.
A year, try every
Um,
day.
I know it seems like that, but the reason why I think we're in a good place and why it's important to for some games to latch on to particular themes, or even in some cases design for the theme, is because it gets the board game into more mainstream stores. The more board games that make it into mainstream stores, and I'm not talking about your Hasbro games, I'm talking about your hobbyist board games. The more of those that make it into mainstream stores, the more people that play them, the more people that want to design them, the more people then want to play them again, and it should just continue to be something that feeds itself and grows. Like really good example, King of Tokyo that we spoke about today. Had Magic never happened and taken off, Richard Garfield never would have designed that game. And the reason why Magic took off is because he had a winner. Wizards of the Coast managed to get that in a lot of hobby stores and eventually mainstream stores and things like that. Richard Garfield gets his name. He gets accolades. Now, he didn't go straight from Magic to King of Tokyo. There were other games in between. But the point is that because that design got in there, he's in mainstream stores. Now, I know, and the thing about Magic, you could argue he hopped on D&D tropes.
Yeah,
Magic is just it's just D&D tropes, but no one would ever fault him for it.
Yeah,
that's right. But I'd never fault him for it because he took he or Wizards of the Coast. I mean, I'm making assumptions here, but they latched a known theme or a known IP in this case, D&D, without actually calling it D&D, onto a popular card game, and it sold. So I kind of think you have to, whether you want to see it as like a deal with the devil, which I kind of disagree with, but I think it's important because going back to our earlier topic about theme versus sorry, I was going to say functionality, which is wrong, but mechanics. Theme is what gets people picking up the box off the shelf. So yes, I'm okay with it as long as it doesn't turn into Monopoly.
All right, look, I think we could. This is one of those interesting design topics that we talk about in board game that we could continue going on. But I would like to pass the topic off to our listeners. I'd like you to leave a comment on either Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you happen to be listening to this. I'd like you to leave a comment what you think about this particular subject. Do you think that you like seeing a lot of these sequels / same designers / themes going on? Do you want to see more individuality? I would love to hear from you. We have been inundated with comments and things going on lately, and we are loving it. So please let us know. We will endeavor to call you out and not call you out but actually read it out and actually, have you be part of this podcast. It is important to us. So what we